Good evening, little masters, and welcome to episode 296 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where I find myself in the company of a queen of great renown.
Yeah, I haven't slain any Nazgul lately, though.
Not this month.
Put it on my list for later this week, maybe.
That's right.
Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Sarah Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who often ponders anew all the days of his past life, Alan Sisto.
It's only a shadow and a thought. Things I've never had to say. Folks, join us as Éowyn wants to fill an empty saddle while Mary wants to fill an empty stomach in the last of our 3 episodes on the Houses of Healing, the 8th chapter of Book 5 of The Return of the King.
Now, folks, some of you are hearing this podcast for the very first time, and to you we bid a warm welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading, talking, speculating, and often joking our way through Middle-earth a few pages at a time.
We take a deep dive into the lore, explore how the story came to be, talk about our favorite themes, and a lot more.
Yeah, but in a light-hearted and fun way, like friends chatting at the pub. And we're really glad you've joined us.
Indeed we are, and I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to the discussion tonight, it's time to head over to our rooms in the North Wing with my friend, the Nerd of the Rings. Well, today I'm pleased to bring you another new installment of the North Wing, this time with Matt from the Nerd of the Rings as my co-host.
We know that Barlam and Butterbur had a room or two in the North Wing at the Prancing Pony Inn that he made special for Hobbits. This is the PPP's place made special for some of our listeners, to give us all a chance to get to know them.
Now, rooms at the North Wing are sometimes a little hard to come by, so only our patrons at the Bombadil's Bequest and Kierdan's Contribution tiers are eligible. Now, if you'd like to be one of the next patrons to join us here, be sure to check out patreon.com/prancingponypod.
I understand there's a bit of a waiting list for the North Wing right now, but I know Alan will get to them all soon, maybe even while I'm still here.
Indeed, maybe. Well, then, why don't we welcome tonight's guest to the North Wing, Anthony Laporte.
So glad to be introduced. Thanks for inviting me out, Alan. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, Anthony, tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? Do your loved ones merely tolerate your nerdiness, or do they share it with you? That kind of thing.
Well, I am a native New Yorker who got to Texas as fast as I could. I've been here for 33 years. I hearken back a long way to Tolkien, but I think everyone just tolerates me whether or not I'm involved in Tolkien or not. So they all just say, whatever he's reading, you don't want to read it, but that's okay.
And Anthony, we were talking a bit about this before we were recording, but why don't you tell everybody what you do?
Well, I am still a trial lawyer here in the great state of Texas. Been that way for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and was still alive, still doing it, did it through COVID, and enjoy it. Haven't reached the bright part of being recovering from it, so I still do it every day. And Alan, I'm envious of your ability to move on to sometimes something else, but a little more grounded than Tolkien, but that's what I spend my time doing. And
well, good.
A few years left, I hope.
I'm sure there will be a few years. And at least you get to do the trial work. You're just sitting there in an office, moving papers along. You're actually getting into the courtroom and doing the fun stuff. That I think I might still be doing that if that were the case.
Very fair statement. Absolutely. The people make the job doable and enjoyable. It would be very dull just to be in an office. It is most enjoyable to deal with the people of the state and the judges and all the courts.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Well, Anthony, we have to ask you the question that we ask everybody who comes to the Prancing Pony. You've got to know this one's coming. When and how did you first discover Tolkien's works? What was your experience like? And what is it that keeps you coming back?
It is the question. I think it's the foundational question of anybody who's read this and kind of adhered to it for the long times that we have. I started with the Ballantine books, as I'm sure we all remember.
Yeah.
And my cousin was reading them and described what it was about, and I did a very Lewis Carroll moment. I said, how can this be an interesting book without any conversations or pictures? I found that they were engrossing in a way that I'd never read anything before. I'd never had anything or seen anything put to pages that was as mind-opening as that at the time. So that was in the teens, and then I just kind of stuck with it, and I was so disappointed, as I think every reader is, to think that there wasn't any more to read.
Yeah.
And obviously the cottage industry that Christopher kind of created in the years that followed, as putting the notes together and the letters together and the other books that were talked about it, kept me tied to it, and we endured bad movies and we endured bad adaptations, but you never drift too far from the original.
Boy, that's true.
Now, which would you say is your favorite book in the Legendarium and why? And if you've ventured outside the Legendarium, what's your favorite non-Legendarium Tolkien work?
The favorite book in the Legendarium is always The Fellowship of the Ring. It sets the tableau, and it brings you in. It invites you, and wherever you are in the world, here is this story of people of good and evil and people trying to do things against impossible odds and trying to be more than they would ordinarily be or than they think they could be. And I think that's an inviting and a quest for all of us. I never went far from the Legendarium. Oddly enough, I actually went to the writers who wrote about Tolkien.
Oh, okay.
John Garth, the author of the Century book. Those books intrigued me more because I kept trying to get under how it was that this man created something that almost universally people say, boy, that was really great. It wasn't just kind of great. It was uniquely great.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. Okay, so then I'll just flip that question around or tweak it a little bit. What's your favorite book about Tolkien then? Is it Shippey's Author of the Century? Is it Garth with Tolkien and the Great War? Is it something else?
I loved Tolkien and the Great War, but Shippey's Author of the Century because it so thumbed its nose at the literati who would say that the books weren't meaningful. And I was having this conversation in advance of this discussion. I said, it is almost a foregone conclusion that the most popular book of the 20th century was The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a close second.
No.
And so, and you go with that and you talk to people and they go, well, that's just fantasy. I go, have you seen The Real Housewives of wherever? That's fantasy too. You do know that that's made up. I mean, you're not really buying that, are you? But yeah, I guess there's different degrees of fantasy for people's lives. But it was the author of the century that really brought me back to this and actually started me down the road to find the Prancing Pony podcast.
Oh, right on. Well, I love that. That's a great little end to that story. Well, Anthony, what's your favorite memory of a Tolkien-related activity? Maybe reading the books aloud to somebody or going to a moot, that sort of thing.
So I started, as many fathers do, reading them to my child. They're fairly dense, and children's minds are not what you'd call, gee, thanks, Dad, you're describing the flora and fauna. I don't get it, and I don't care. Are there something else going to happen? I remember doing that. I enjoyed doing that. I remember and then I remember watching the movies and taking my daughter to the movie. And so that was as much a part of it. And I get more joy out of that rather than valuing the Hobbit movies, which I think I joined many people in thinking they weren't very good movies. Yeah. But they were there. Yeah. And it was the people and the characters we kind of like.
Exactly.
So it was an experience that she and I enjoyed.
And that's the point. I mean, really, one of the things that we've, I say we, but, Matt and I as independent content creators, people who, with Matt as Nerd of the Rings, we've both kind of come to that realization that these adaptations, no matter whether they're excellent ones like The Fellowship of the Ring or really questionable ones like Battle of the Five Armies, they bring people into the fandom, and it's our job to welcome them and to, let them explore and to be there sort of at their side and answering questions. And it's been neat to see so many people come to Tolkien through those adaptations, again, regardless of the quality of those adaptations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm certain you all remember Corey Olsen kind of went out there on his own with Mythgard for a while. He was kind of blazing a trail.
The OG Tolkien podcaster,
Right, exactly. And if you've ever listened, and I know you have, to those classes he would teach, where he's reading through the comments, and it goes on for hours, and you're thinking, I think you could tighten this up, Corey. I think we're kind of wandering here, but
we need a producer on this show. Yeah.
You have to take this to post, Corey. You have to go in, but it all worked out, and that drove me to find again. The PPP was when it started, and as it evolved, just such a tightly woven story and moving things at a pace that was less than glacial. Yeah. But
I do love Corey's pace, but I mean, there's a part of me that wishes I'd gone slower, and certainly in hindsight, the Silmarillion was too quick. I am looking forward to doing that over a really extended period of time. But yeah, I definitely want to be able to finish this before I retire, let alone die of old age. So that's the pace that I'm going to choose.
Right, no more casualties. We have to finish.
No, exactly. I don't want to give it to my son's son's son. Yeah. So now for a lightning round of quick questions and answers now that we've taken a long time. Matt, why don't you fire away with the first one?
Yeah, first up, who is your favorite character in The Lord of the Rings?
I am a Merry fan. And not the Merry of the movies, but the Merry of the books. The Merry of the books is the Linus Van Pelt of The Lord of the Rings.
I am never going to unpicture that with him carrying a security blanket around.
That's right, but he has vision, he understands, he can quote what the meaning of Christmas is, and he understands and he moves forward without doubting that he's not the star, but he is a piece of immense importance.
Wow. I love that comparison, by the way. I've never heard it before, and I don't want to ever unhear it. What's the one place in Middle-earth you wish you could visit?
It's always Rivendell. It will always be Rivendell. I think Tad Williams wrote a terrible series of books that I slogged through one time that had Rivendell as the point of the loci that people were trying to get to. But everyone knows Rivendell is the home and the heart of what Tolkien was writing.
Yep.
Now, here's a really
controversial one.
Really controversial one. Balrog wings, actual or metaphorical?
They are completely metaphorical, and I am still trying to figure out why there's so many feet in the Balrog wings actual camp. But until someone can explain to me the three great mysteries of Tolkien, that is repopulation, why Tom Bombadil is there.
His mere presence alone, yes.
His mere presence, and why the Eagles weren't getting on board with this fight. I can't square them all up in my mind.
Fair enough. Your favorite poem or song in the Legendarium?
You always want to go to the Misty Mountains when the dwarves sing the song in The Hobbit, but I always simply go with when Bilbo says, the road's a dangerous place. If you're not careful, you don't know where you might end up. I just stop with that. I think it's a simple statement.
It is indeed.
What do you think happened to the Entwives?
Another mystery question. I will say this, gentlemen, the saddest part about The Lord of the Rings is that Tolkien wrote about a world in decline, and the Entwives were a part of that. Obviously, there's a number that dim every year as they go quiet or they become more tree-ish. The final statement is, though, that Tolkien actually did that to all of us. He left us a world in decline, and then he left us with nothing more. And we always sit here in this anguish of going, if only there could be more, but where would it have left us and where would it have led to? So I think that the Entwives went as part of Tolkien saying that this thing that we all idealize and love so much was never going to be static. It was always going to ultimately turn downhill.
Ultimately fade. Yeah, boy, that's absolutely true.
That's great.
I have one question, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It appeared to me that Tolkien did not like one particular title, Lord. Lord Denethor, the Lord of the Rings, and he didn't like it when Pippin called Frodo the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, he definitely didn't like that. True.
The word Lord seems to precede some people who bad things will happen to. And I did always want to ask you, because I don't have the depth of knowledge of some of the other books, if you could consider that, because King did well. King Theoden, the kings did well, the lords didn't do so well. And I was like, wait, is this a real thing, or is this something I'm just perceiving in the...
I'd have to do a really in-depth textual analysis. Who would be a perfect person to get together with on this, Matt? It would be James with the Digital Tolkien Project, because he'd be able to pair up every occurrence of the word Lord versus every occurrence of the word King and give us a statistical analysis of who is referred to and all of that. So, Anthony, I'm going to have to look into that. I'll have to get back to you. There's no way I can answer that right now, but I will look into that for you.
Just thought I'd toss it out because
That's a great one.
The phrase of the Lord of the Mark, and I was like, maybe people don't want that name.
I will say, I think most commonly we see it. I just did a quick search on my Kindle app. It comes up 500 times over the course of Lord of the Rings, but
we'd have to do a deep dive to see who it's responding to.
What each is. I do know, like you said, they referred to Denethor as the Lord of Minas Tirith, but it also pops up a lot when we're talking about elven rulers. So Elrond,
Lord Elrond,
and the Lord and Lady being Celeborn and Galadriel. So
maybe it's not the holding fast. I want to say this: you guys are great. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh,
I
my
listened
pleasure.
to you guys for hours before I joined, not because I was holding back joining, but I never joined a podcast. And I just felt I can't listen to these guys anymore and not like be a part, engage in it, because they're great.
Thank
I mean,
you.
the effort is wonderful to hear, and the engagement and the depth is well earned and well deserved. It's such a rich texture to a story that we all have enjoyed so much. I was listening to episode 78 earlier tonight, and you had 5 members at the Kierdans level at that point in time. And you've come so far. Congratulations to you. It's a tribute to who you are and what you've done and the effort.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. That is so kind.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for putting up with me for tonight.
Thank you, Anthony. And thanks again for joining us. I hope I'll see you back at our next Questions After Nightfall, if not sooner. But for now, folks, we return you to the podcast in progress. And that is always a privilege to sit down with our listeners, even if, obviously, this was recorded a bit ago.
Yeah, indeed. But I think it's time to dive into the last parts of this chapter. Alan, could you lead us off?
Indeed, I could. Then Éomer was silent and looked on his sister as if pondering anew all the days of their past life together. But Aragorn said, I saw also what you saw, Éomer. Few other griefs amid the ill chances of this world have more bitterness and shame for a man's heart than to behold the love of a lady so fair and brave that cannot be returned. Sorrow and pity have followed me ever since I left her desperate in Dunharrow and rode to the paths of the dead, and no fear upon that way was so present as the fear for what might befall her. And yet, Éomer, I say to you that she loves you more truly than me. For you she loves and knows, but in me she loves only a shadow and a thought, a hope of glory and great deeds, and lands far from the fields of Rohan. I have maybe the power to heal her body, and to recall her from the dark valley, but to what she will awake, hope or forgetfulness or despair, I do not know. And if to despair, then she will die, unless other healing comes which I cannot bring. Alas, for her deeds have set her among the queens of great renown. Then Aragorn stooped and looked in her face, and it was indeed white as a lily, cold as frost, and hard as graven stone. But he bent and kissed her on the brow, and called her softly, saying, Éowyn, Éowyn's daughter, awake, for your enemy is passed away. She did not stir, but now she began again to breathe deeply, so that her breast rose and fell beneath the white linen of the sheet. Once more, Aragorn bruised 2 leaves of athelas, and cast them into steaming water, and he laved her brow with it, and her right arm lying cold and nerveless on the coverlet. Then, whether Aragorn had indeed some forgotten power of westernesse, or whether it was but his words of the Lady Éowyn that wrought on them, as the sweet influence of the herbs stole about the chamber, it seemed to those who stood by that a keen wind blew through the window, and it bore no scent, but was an air wholly fresh and clean and young, as if it had not before been breathed by any living thing, and came new-made from snowy mountains high beneath a dome of stars, or from shores of silver far away, washed by seas of foam.
Oh, well.
Whoa. How evocative is that picture, huh?
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, if there's one thing Tolkien does really well, it's similes. And he does throw quite a lot of them at us in that little passage there,
Yes,
doesn't he?
Does. Yeah, that is true. They come thick and fast, no doubt about it. Well, let's go and get back to the beginning of that passage, huh?
So, Gandalf had some really strong insight for Éomer about his sister last week.
He sure did.
And now we start with the new king of Rohan absorbing these observations and thinking, it seems, all the way back to the beginning of their lives.
Yeah.
He's literally had to rethink everything he thought he knew about their relationship, right?
It's changing the frame. I mean, that's the whole thing. He's now changed the perspective on the entire their existence, their life, all the things that he has assumed about her. You know, I mean, like we talked about last week, he sort of played this card of, well, I understand what she was going through. You know, I was worried about Theoden too. And, you know, I was worried about the future of Rohan. And so I get these concerns. And Gandalf's like, no, you don't. Bro, you do not understand, because you could get out there in the fields and you could do stuff. And she's stuck there with only her dotard uncle and Wormtongue. Totally different. And
Totally
she's stuck in the
different.
body of a woman, so she can't do the things that you're allowed to do. Man, it was great.
Yeah, really great. And to me, it's no surprise that when we look upon Éowyn here in the Houses of Healing, that there's something still quite cold and still about her.
Yeah.
Because this is a traumatized woman who rode into battle. And she is still underneath the triumph over the Witch King and everything else. This is still a traumatized woman.
That is
and
true.
So the fact that she is so pale and so cold and her features are so stone-like, petrified is another great word for stone-like, right?
Yeah, it is. That is.
I think what we're seeing is somebody who is still in the grip of the same trauma that drove her to do what she did to get to the Battle of Pelennor Fields.
That's fair. I mean, she's been described the same way, this coldness, this hardness, this distance, really ever since we met her, because by that point she was already, as you said, a traumatized woman. She's been stuck in this circumstance that she just could not change. There's no power that she had to free herself from her responsibilities to her uncle, which, I mean, she loves him. So of course she's going to take care of him, but she's stuck also dealing with Wormtongue because of that. Éomer could be like, yeah, I'm tired of this guy. I'm out, But I like to see that Éomer here is, as you pointed out, thinking all the way back to the beginning of their lives. He's sort of recalibrating. And Éomer, for all his faults, and he is very headstrong. We observed this back in the incident with Han Buri-Khan, where he sort of comes off very condescending, but then, you sort of see him recalibrate. I think that's happening here. He's gaining a little wisdom, and Gandalf has helped him open his eyes a little bit. But yeah.
But he's still very young.
He is.
Right?
He is.
He's still a young man. He's had to do a lot of growing up in the last couple of days. The fact that he is actually listening to Gandalf and learning again about Éowyn, if you like, is really important, because it's now in this moment that he's realizing that he was actually in a position of privilege in that he could actually get on his horse and go and do things. And Éowyn wasn't able to do that.
Even though she had the same desire and, as Gandalf said, at least the same courage. I love that.
At least the same, if not more.
It
takes enormous courage to do what she actually did, which is stay by the king's side and live under the lascivious eye of Wormtongue, which is gross.
That guy, Oh. Moving forward, Aragorn here, responds to what Éomer was implying last week, right? That Éowyn's sorrow didn't begin until she met him. And not surprisingly, he does handle this with dignity and class, doesn't he?
Right. Yes, he says, I saw it. So he understood what was going on far better than her own brother.
Yeah. I mean, he's not an idiot. And it's probably not the first time in his 88 years that he's caught somebody's eye not named Arwen.
Fairly certain. Yeah. And he actually does speak of the sorrow of seeing love like this that cannot be returned. He knows that there's something that Éowyn is sort of projecting onto Aragorn in that moment, but it's not like he's going to actually respond to that love with the kind of love that perhaps Éowyn was looking for in that moment. As he says, few griefs have more bitterness and shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really sensitive to what he's actually... I'm hesitating to use the word caused in Éowyn, but he does recognize that what Éowyn was feeling for him is not what maybe she thought she was feeling for him, right?
Yeah. And we'll get to more of that too, but we see first his own reaction, which is that ever since he's left her, his mind has been with her, right? He's felt this sorrow and pity for her, which Faramir observes, and we're going to talk about next season, because that whole thing about pity really comes into play in their relationship. And it's going to be a fascinating conversation then.
Right. And as fearful as his journey through the Pass of the Dead was, that fear was no more for him than the fear he had for what might happen to Éowyn.
That's pretty powerful stuff right there. I mean, you remember the passing of the Great Company. We remember the Paths of the Dead. That's a terrifying place. And he's trying to explain to Éomer that, look, I was very afraid for what would happen to your sister. She was in a very bad place as a result of all of these things. He was not clueless, though. We talked about this. He knew. He recognized it, and it was absolutely intentional what he did. When she switched to that thee and thy and started trying to use the intimate, familiar second-person pronoun, and he stuck with you and kept her at arm's length, that was very intentional. It was very much a choice to not give her a false hope, to not allow her to feel like that love was being returned, which, of course, he could not. And, he explains, this is the part that we started to kind of touch on earlier. Éomer, she loves you more truly than she loves me, right? She knows you. She doesn't know me. She thinks she does, but she just knows this idea, doesn't she?
Absolutely. And again, that's not a surprise. She's been caged, right?
Yeah.
She's been caught under the eye of Wormtongue, looking after her uncle, and then in rides this magnificent heroic figure, and in him she sees, and Aragorn, he admits this, in him she sees what she wants to be.
Yes.
As much as anything. Right?
Absolutely.
And so when she sees him, she is awed by him and attracted to him.
He is a charismatic guy. Let's not forget, this is a king, right? I mean, this is a born king of the line of Elros. So he's got some charisma for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yet you're quite right in that he maintains that distance, and he does it by keeping with the more formal pronouns. And also it's very noticeable that Éowyn uses his name over and over, and he only addresses her as lady. He doesn't use her first name. So he's doing the right thing. He's maintaining a distance between them because he recognizes, and here we get the line that the screenwriters paraphrase when he tells Éowyn directly in the films, it is but a shadow and a thought that you love. It's not true love, right? It's not the kind of love that Aragorn feels for Arwen, for example, but it is a love that is built out of awe and respect and a desire for something. But she thinks it's a desire for Aragorn, but it's not really.
No, it's a desire for what he
escape.
represents.
It's a desire for great deeds. It's a desire to emulate him.
Yeah.
All those things, right?
She looks up to him, as we all do, right? I mean, men want to be him, women want to be with him. But, he's Aragorn. He's the king. He's an amazing guy. But like you said, she sees in him glory and great deeds. But I think also, as you hinted at, distance from Rohan is very much what she sees in Aragorn. He is her ticket out of there.
Right.
If he were to
because
choose her.
if he will take her with him, which is what she wants, then finally she can do the deeds that she wants to do. And I think also she can now be active.
Yes.
Because that's the one thing she hasn't been allowed to be, is active. And that lack of activity, that enforced passivity is distressing for her, right?
Yeah, of course it is. It is. She's chafing at this. I mean, the whole cage illustration is probably the one that we see most often. I mean, Gandalf explains it last week as he's talking to Éomer with the lines that Wormtongue gets in the film, the whole thing about the hutch to trammel some wild thing in. But then that's also the thing she fears the most, that she fears being caged. And yet that's all she has been for so long now.
Right. And I think the bit that comes on the end of that quote, a hutch to trammel a wild thing in, if you actually look at what she says back in the chapter when she's begging Aragorn to take her with him, that she says that she fears that cage, but to get used to that cage. Until all desire,
until old age, and yes.
Exactly. Thank you, because I've forgotten the exact words, but I knew what I was going for. But that she fears that actually she will become accustomed to the cage. Yeah, and in some ways, I think she fears that more than the cage itself.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, if we go back to that quote, and I've actually pulled it up while you were talking about it. He says, "What do you fear, lady?" And there's an example of, like what you said, that he does use lady to keep that arm's length instead of calling her by name. And she says, "A cage, to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them. And all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire."
Right.
Man, that explains so much about why she is so very attracted to Aragorn. The ideal that he represents, the fact that he would give her the freedom and ability to do great deeds and to get out from behind these bars that she's been in. Wow. Yeah.
And perhaps she also sees in him a potential authority to enable her to break free, because she's not getting permission from Theoden.
No.
And Éomer won't go against Theoden, but Aragorn is someone
He's
higher.
king of a different
even.
realm. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But he is having none of it. But here in this moment, he's teaching Éomer something about his sister. He's actually making clear to Éomer, alongside what Gandalf has said, that there are limitations to how he has been able to approach Éowyn, but that she has never left his thoughts, right? And here he then explains that he might have the ability to heal her and to bring her back from darkness, just as he did immediately before this for Faramir. But he can't promise what she'll come back to.
Yeah.
If it's despair, then she's going to die.
Yeah. I want to talk real briefly about this. He does make it sound almost as though it's, I'm not going to use the word random, but I'm going to use the word random. Like it's almost random. Like we're going to roll the dice and it's, a D6 divided by 2 or whatever, because there is no D3. Do we get forgetfulness, hope, or despair? Right? What is she going to wake up with? But is it random? Is this something that is within her choice? Or is it within the choice of anybody who is awoken by the king out of this state? And if it isn't a choice, is it a side effect of the Black Shadow? Is the despair that she might wake to the residual aftermath? Though we see, of course, Mary gets out of it without that residual aftermath. So I'm wondering how much of this is in her control, I wonder.
Right. I think that's a really interesting question, right? Because you've got 3 people lying next to each other who've all been affected by the Black Breath. You've got Faramir, who has had his own despair because of the way in which he's been treated by Denethor and because of his fears for Gondor, etc. And then, of course, his sadness at the loss of his brother. So you've got that going on there. But Faramir has responded to the call of the king. He is a true steward of Gondor.
He wakes up, the first thing out of his mouth is, "You're the king. I'm right." Wow. I mean, it's immediate recognition, immediate love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Aragorn is able to draw him back. Remember, we were talking about how it's almost like Aragorn passes through the veil and into like a shadow world to pull Faramir back.
Yeah.
And he's able to do that by reaching out to Faramir as Faramir's king. Then you've got Merry. And Merry hasn't come from the same long place of despair.
No. It's been a rough few days.
It's been a rough few days. He's had his travails, he's had his difficulties.
He certainly has.
Goodness knows, being part of destroying the Witch King is not very easy for him. But in some ways, calling Merry back, if you like, out of the despair is a bit too strong a word here for it, but almost like a state of depression, if you like, that the Black Breath puts upon you, where you just sink into.
It's a wet blanket that just kind of weighs you down.
Exactly. Is not such a tough job. But with Éowyn, here you have again, I'm going to use that word, traumatized woman. And she has been traumatized for a very, very long time. Calling her back is a totally different thing. She's not going to respond in the same way that Faramir did. She has to choose, I think, to come back, because she could choose, I think, not to. Her life has been not fabulous.
No.
And so Aragorn he can do his best. He can call her back in the same sort of way that he did for Faramir. He can try to draw her back into life, but to come back, she's got to accept that this is life and she actually wants to be alive. Yeah.
And that really does hang in the balance for a while, doesn't it? As we see in the Houses of Healing, there's not that certainty even for a number of days.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think it's actually, to go back to your initial question, is it her choice? Is it the choice of someone woken up by the king? Is it just a nasty side effect of the Black Shadow? My answer to that is yes. It's all 3 of those things, I think.
Good answer.
It's
good answer.
How is she going to respond to the Black Shadow? How is the Black Breath going to actually play into the fears and the difficulties that were already plaguing her? Is she going to choose to come back? And then even when she comes back, as we'll obviously see later on, it's not exactly back to sunshine and roses and rainbows and unicorns, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. Still, Aragorn does agree, though, that it's going to be really, really sad if she does come back to despair, because then she'll die. Because if she dies, that's going to be a tragedy, because what she's done has set her among the queens of great renown.
Ooh.
Wow.
Right.
Who's he talking about here? Who are the queens of great renown in your mind?
Well, exactly. I mean, how many human queens of great renown have there been?
There have only been a handful of Númenórean queens.
Exactly. Yeah, really not that many. I mean, is he counting her among the queens of great renown of all races?
Elven queens? Because then you're putting her in the category of some pretty amazing people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But whoever it is he's referring to, I mean, we are talking about somebody who has knowledge going back quite a long way, because he is in his 80s at this point, right? He's just very spry for an 80-year-old.
May I be so spry in 30 years.
Yeah, same. But he also has knowledge that has been passed down to him of kings and queens of old and their great deeds. After all, one of the things that we see him doing all the way back in the Fellowship of the Ring is singing the lay of Beren and Luthien, right? The Song of Beren and Luthien. So he has actually, I think, a very wide knowledge of the history of Middle-earth.
Yeah, so this is saying something.
Yeah, he knows who those of great renown are. And he's not wrong, actually. She has made some incredibly brave choices.
Yeah. And slaying the Witch King alone, just that one thing, puts her right up there near the top. I mean, this is up there with Turin's killing of Glaurung. It is up there with, Frodo getting the ring to the cracks of doom. It is up there.
Right.
Conquering this kind of evil is,
even just standing in front of the Witch King.
And laughing at him.
Exactly.
Which is mind-blowing. I mean, everybody else is trembling with, yeah.
I mean, your average person at this point is screaming and running away and pooping themselves.
Exactly. I was about to say various bodily liquids running down her pants. I mean, she's not in a great place here standing against the Witch King, but she doesn't care. She takes her helmet off. Oh, no, man, huh? Well, guess what?
Yes, no living man am I. So suck on that, dude.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, yes, it's a moment where she is filled with emotion anyway at what's happened to her uncle.
Yeah.
She's standing over the body of Theoden. You are not going to touch him.
Yeah.
If you touch him, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And he laughs at her, and she doesn't just drop out of absolute terror. And this is the usual effect that the Witch King has on everybody around.
He's quite surprised that she's not just passed out unconscious from fear,
Right, yeah. And Tolkien even builds that into the description. I know we'll not go all the way through the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and that chunk of it. But it's the fact that doubt came into his mind when he sees her standing there, standing over the body of Theoden. He's like, it's got to
be the first time doubt has crossed his mind in who knows how long. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then he's taken down by a hobbit and a human woman.
I love it.
Sucks to be you.
It sure does, man. You picked the wrong side, dude. You picked the wrong side.
Yeah. And this serves him right for being a total sexist.
Doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No living man may hinder me. Well, I've got news for you, pal.
Oh, fun stuff. Well, let's get back to here, because I'm like, wow, this is fantastic, but we're going to go forever.
Okay. So we're going back to the moment where Aragorn is bending over Éowyn and he is looking into her, not just at her. I think he's looking into her.
Right.
And then he leans in, he looks more closely, and he sees the same things he mentioned to Éomer. It's beauty, but it's cold and it's hard.
Like stone, like you said, petrified.
Right. I mean, that word petrified, I think, really works here, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sure does.
He kisses her on the forehead, and then he calls for her as he did for Faramir.
It's interesting. There's just a slight difference. Like with Faramir, I remember we hear that he just called the name Faramir, and it would also sort of get quieter and quieter every time that he did. With her, he tells her to awake for a reason, because her enemy has passed away.
Which enemy is he referring to?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's more than one enemy for Éowyn here. Right? The simple answer is, of course, the Witch King.
Right.
Right.
He's gone. But that's an interesting one. I mean, I think despair is her biggest enemy, but that I can't say despair has passed away, and that's just a hopeful statement on Aragorn's part, if that's the case.
Right. But I think there's been so much standing in Éowyn's way.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps this is why Aragorn does use these words. It's okay to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's safe. You can come back now. And
exactly. He doesn't have to tell Faramir it's safe. He just commands him.
He just commands him because he's the king. Right.
Right.
And we do see a response from her. It's not awaking yet, right? We see her breathing improves. It gets deeper. There's still no change in her condition on the outside, though.
Right. Yeah. She still seems cold and
the dead
she doesn't
arm.
stir. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So the battle continues, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Like before, he turns to Athelas to make the difference.
Yeah.
So he wipes her forehead with the warm athelas-infused water, as well as her arm, the non-dead one, not the broken one.
Right.
Because the broken one's just a physical injury, right?
That'll heal with time. Absolutely. And
exactly.
now this is so cool because this is the second of three, and we will get to compare all of them later. A different set of sensations associated with the athelas, right? The people in her chamber feel this keen wind with no scent, but it's purely fresh. And I can't even imagine this. I love this phrase, air as though it had never been breathed before.
Right.
Wow.
I mean,
what
the youngest,
that?
freshest breath. I know, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's a complete antithesis to the black breath.
Yes. Yes, it
which is like the worst halitosis ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But isn't it interesting how athelas seems to act slightly differently with different people?
It really is. I can't wait to wait. We're going to wait until after Mary's awakening before we actually compare all three. But yeah.
But again, think back to what my woman Yorith said about what was one of the main uses of this herb, which is to freshen the air, to make the air sweet. Well, it's doing that.
It is.
But it's doing it with a bit more oomph because it's being wielded by the true king.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's specifically said to have come from snowy mountains high beneath a dome of stars, or silver shores washed by foamy seas. Silver shores, hey? Are they the same ones that roll back?
Exactly. I mean, tell me you're talking about, Taniquetil, Manwë, and Varda without telling me you're talking about Taniquetil, Manwë, and Varda.
Right.
It's a little on the nose, but it's beautiful. And I think it's perfectly well done. Speaking of this wind, by the way, Sean and I talked about this back in episode 288 when we were talking about the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and the wind at that time was blowing the black-sailed ships up the Anduin. And we felt like that might have been Manwë driving the eucatastrophe forward. We thought so, but this actually seems like an even more direct involvement. This almost appears to be an intervention on Manwë's part to do two things, to give legitimacy to Aragorn's kingship, but also to heal Éowyn. Like, he's involved in this right here. And I love it. I absolutely do.
Right. I think you're right, actually. It's really easy to think that the Valar do nothing at all in the Third Age. But every now and then, Tolkien puts a little nugget in there.
Yep.
You got to look for it.
Sometimes that might have been an Ulmo thing right there. Or, this is a Manwë thing right here. And this feels like Manwë saying, wow, good on you. You killed the Witch King. Let me throw a little something extra your way. It's really neat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. Have wind. Oh, hang on. But I do like, though, the way the text also implies that one of the reasons that folks experienced it like this might have been Aragorn's forgotten power.
Right.
And all the words he spoke about Éowyn.
I especially like that last bit, that the words he spoke about her might be one of the reasons why people experience them this way.
Right.
I'm not sure how I can draw that connection, but it's beautiful to think that his kindness, his respect, his admiration, and his depth of understanding are reflected in how people experience the fragrance of athelas in this moment. It's really neat.
Right. I mean, the fact that he has the hands of a healer because the hands of a king, etc., etc. I think that one of the reasons why he is the true king in this moment is because it's a combination of what he is and who he is.
Yeah.
So, he could be the descendant of Isildur and the true king and blah, blah, but he could also be an absolute bonehead, but he isn't.
That's true. I mean, Eärnur was a descendant of Isildur. Well, he was a descendant of Anarion, my bad. But yeah, he's still a descendant of Elros.
And he was a total bonehead.
And he was a total bonehead. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Hopefully no boneheads when we come back from the break. Well, folks, before we get back to the text and Aragorn's stealthy departure from the room, we want to make sure you know that even after you've listened to the episode, there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page to get the news, but be sure to join the group for some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/Prancing Pony Pod. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, we're simply at Prancing Pony Pod.
And finally, my all-new daily podcast, Today's Tolkien Times, should finally be out by now. It is a short 6 to 8 minute show available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and also available in video form on YouTube. Each weekday will feature something different, from Third Age Thursdays to Silmarillion Saturdays. So join me on this new adventure. Visit TolkienTimes.com and follow at Tolkien Times on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find me on Facebook at Today's Tolkien Times. And folks, if you do enjoy the PPP, please consider supporting the show by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast. And when you do, you get a lot. You get an active Discord community, including live episode recordings. We're recording this episode live in front of some 50 or 60 patrons. You get postscripts, you get episodes without digital ads, and a lot more.
A lot more, like free merch and live Discord hangouts. But you also can become part of our Questions After Nightfall episodes, or even join us as a guest in the North Wing. So please go to patreon.com/prancingponypod to show your support and join the Fellowship of the Podcast.
You can also help us out by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and a rating on Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends. For now, though, let's get back to the text. Sara?
Okay, so I'm picking up straight away from the bit where you were reading. "Awake, Éowyn, Lady of Rohan," said Aragorn again, and he took her right hand in his and felt it warm with life returning. "Awake, the shadow is gone, and all darkness is washed clean." Then he laid her hand in Éomer's and stepped away. "Call her," he said, and he passed silently from the chamber. "Éowyn, Éowyn," cried Éomer amid his tears, but she opened her eyes and said, "Éomer, what joy is this? For they said that you were slain. Nay, but that was only the dark voices in my dream. How long have I been dreaming?" "Not long, my sister," said Éomer, "but think no more on it." "I'm strangely weary," she said. "I must rest a little. But tell me, what of the Lord of the Mark? Alas, do not tell me that that was a dream, for I know that it was not. He is dead, as he foresaw." "He is dead," said Éomer, "but he bade me say farewell to Éowyn, dearer than daughter. He lies now in great honour in the citadel of Gondor." "That is grievous," she said, "and yet it is good beyond all that I dared hope in the dark days, when it seemed that the house of Éol was sunk in honour less than any shepherd's cot." "And what of the king's esquire, the halfling? Éomer, you shall make him a knight of the Riddermark, for he is valiant." "He lies nearby in this house, and I will go to him," said Gandalf. "Éomer shall stay here for a while, but do not speak yet of war or woe until you are made whole again. Great gladness it is to see you wake again to health and hope, so valiant a lady." "To health," said Éowyn. "It may be so. At least while there is an empty saddle of some fallen rider that I can fill, and there are deeds to do. But to hope, I do not know."
Wow. And on that slightly dark note, we'll go back to the beginning of the passage. We'll have plenty to talk about when we get there. So Aragorn again tells her to wake up, takes her hand in his. I will add, just thanks to Hammond and Skull for pointing this out to us, the bit about the hand feeling warm as life returns to it, that actually didn't show up until the second edition in 1965.
And mirrors, of course, Sam holding onto Frodo's hand, which had been so cold, right?
Mm-hmm. And Pippin holding onto Merry's hand. Yeah.
Exactly. So he tells her that the shadow is gone, the dark has been washed away. But as she begins to stir, he kind of mixes it up here. He puts her hand in Éomer's, and he tells him to call to her as he leaves. Now, why do you think he does that?
I know. I thought that was really interesting. Part of me thinks it's because he knows, well, or he thinks he knows and is likely right, what Éowyn's reaction might be if she woke to see him. Mm-hmm. I think the confusion emotionally, I think she needs to see her brother first. And it's why he steps out of the room, too. He doesn't just say, Éomer, you call her because you're going to be more effective at this. He says, Éomer, you call her. I got someplace to go, right? He's out. And it's not because he doesn't care. I think we've just gone over how very, very much he cares, right? I mean, he's been thinking about her, worried about her, afraid for what might happen to her. But I think he knows that if he's there when he wakes her up, he risks even more of that misplaced love.
Yeah. It's not appropriate, is it, for him to be the first face that she sees? And as he'd said earlier, it's actually Éomer that she loves more than him.
Yeah.
So it's more appropriate for Éomer to call her anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a voice that she's been listening to all her life, and to have him call her back is going to be deeply relevant. And so, of course, Éomer joyfully does, right? I mean, he's crying for her as he calls her, but she wakes up with joy to see him because she was told he'd been killed. But then we find out something different. Yeah. She realized that was just the dream that she's been caught in, the really dark dream. And you can imagine that it would be almost like a living nightmare, wouldn't you? It gives us an idea of just how potent the Black Shadow is and why it could so easily lead to death, because the dreams are so terrible that the body can just give up. The psyche can give up. Absolutely. Right? Convinced that there's no chance, that there's no hope, there is no life, right?
Just get sunk in the depression.
Exactly. So then she asks the logical question, like, how long have I been dreaming? Éomer wants to move on from that. She recognizes how exhausted she is, but she insists, look, I need to know about Theoden. I remember that happening. I was there 3,000 years ago, Gandalf, I was there. And she knows it was not a dream.
Right. And Éomer confirms this for her, but he tries to lift it a little bit. Yes, he's dead, but he delivers her the farewell from their uncle.
So sweet.
Right. And this is a great thing to do because he tells her that, in effect, one of the last thoughts that Theoden had was of her.
Absolutely.
And then he tells her that he is appropriately lying in state in the Citadel, that this is where Theoden should be because he is Theoden, king of the Riddermark.
And I loved that moment, by the way, in the first of our episodes on this chapter. I don't know how I missed that so many times in terms of how rich that moment is, but wow. Theoden lying in state, that golden cloth, the 12 knights mixed of Gondor and Rohan surrounding him. Fantastic.
Great honor. Yeah. Great honor.
Really, really is. I keep thinking what an amazing scene that would have been in the films, right?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. She's, of course, understandably grieved by Theoden's death. I think she knew that it was happening when she was dealing with him. I mean, it was pretty clear he was mortally wounded. But she is pleased, even though she's sad, she's pleased because it is a better ending than she could have imagined just 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks?
2 weeks. That is right. It is still March 15th. Gandalf came and healed Theoden on March 2nd. Just 13 days ago, this was a different world for her.
All right. It just shows how fast things have been moving and how very many things have been happening since, right?
It's hard to imagine. I mean, especially in podcast time because we take so long. But I mean, that's only been 13 days. So much has happened that let's get everybody together. Let's go have a fight against Saruman. Oh, no, never mind. Let's go over to Helm's Deep. We'll fight there. And then now let's go take it to Saruman. Oh, it turns out he's already been defeated. Let's have a chat, then all of this. Yeah.
And that's all happened in
13 days.
Wow, 13 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Quite a bit.
I mean, keeping the timeline in your head is easier said than done, right?
Much easier said than done. Absolutely. There's a whole book on it, that new, the Journal of Tolkien Studies, the supplement that is nothing but the chronology. Fantastic resource. We've been using that quite a bit since the beginning of this year.
Right. But when she's joyful, she has quite a bit more to say about why she's happy about where Theoden is, right?
Right. Absolutely. Because when she says the House of Eorl, I originally was thinking she's not referring to Meduseld, right? She's referring to not the literal house of the king, but to the descendants of Eorl, and that is the family. But that makes it interesting when she then compares its status under the influence of Wormtongue to the cottage of a shepherd. That's what the shepherd's cot means here.
Yes, yeah. But according to Hammond and Skull, Tolkien actually explains in his 1966 index that quote, here he meant house in both senses of the word. Well, there you have it.
There it is. Of course he does. That's the way Tolkien does things. Yeah.
Of course he does. Thank you for that, John Ronald. And then she moves on to sing Mary's praises. Well, of course, but I mean, how wonderful that she wakes from despair and she's not waking up to sunshine and rainbows. No. But her thoughts are of Merry and his great deed. Yeah. And she wants that recognized.
She's remembering, those moments chronologically. She remembers Theoden falling, and now she's moved on to Merry and what he did against the Witch King. And this time it's Gandalf who answers the question, right? Gandalf responds rather than Éomer. He lets her know, Merry's here in the Houses of Healing. In fact, I'm going to go to him. Éomer, by the way, is going to stay here.
Right. And recall then that Beregond and Bergil remained with Faramir, and now Éomer stays with Éowyn, while the rest, Gandalf, Pippin, and Aragorn, they all leave.
That's right. Now, I think Tolkien might have forgotten about Imrahil here. The last time he was mentioned was right after Faramir's healing, where we read, and Aragorn left the chamber with Gandalf and Imrahil, but Beregond and his son remained behind. Okay, so Aragorn, Gandalf, and Imrahil leave with Pippin behind, because that's when Pippin overhears the bit from Yorith. Then there's nothing about him during the healing of Éowyn. Okay, fine, he has nothing to say. Maybe he doesn't know her. Only Éomer is instructed to stay with her, so he must be going with them to Merry. But when we finish with that healing, we read, and kissing Merry, Aragorn went out, and Gandalf went with him, Pippin remained behind. So,
right.
Poof, the disappearing Imrahil. Yeah.
Maybe he went out to get coffee or something.
I'll go get donuts, you guys. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's a whole lot of healing going on.
Yeah, there is.
So Gandalf gives us some advice. He says to Éowyn, don't talk about war or woe until she's healed.
Good advice.
That's a little bit optimistic.
It is, but it's not going to be followed, but it's good advice.
It's great advice, but you can not talk about it, but I think she's going to be thinking about it.
Or not to, yeah.
And he uses the phrase, to health and hope. Well, Éowyn has some thoughts about that.
She
and
sure
I'm sure
does.
you can hear the capitalization of that, right? Yeah. I mean, she's kind of fine with the health bit because it will enable her to fill an empty saddle and keep on fighting, right? So this is important. She's woken up, but she's not ready to kind of sink back into a womanly expectation of behavior. She said, okay, I can deal with being healthy while there's an empty saddle to fill and fights to be fought. But she's not so sure about the hope bit, and that's important right now.
That's very important right now. I mean, okay, we've talked about the hope and despair spectrum, and okay, maybe despair isn't the 0 on the scale. I think we've all come to kind of understand despair being at -10 and hope being at 10, and there's a hopeless state that isn't despair, that's somewhere in the middle where that détente is, and that may be apparently where she's at right now. And so she is sort of in the balance, like Aragorn says. If she wakes to despair, she's going to die.
Right. I think if we were going to put a color to her emotions right now, it's beige.
Yeah. Puce.
I'm going with beige because it's the apologies to all beige loving people out there, but it's kind of the least interesting of colors. I think her emotions right now are barely engaged.
Yeah.
She's sad about Theoden. She wants Mary's great deed to be recognized.
Yeah.
She hasn't even mentioned her own deeds, by the way.
No.
She's not
No,
interested
she's
in
not.
talking about those.
Because she's not done. I mean, as she will tell Faramir later, I rode out to die. I came seeking death. That was my goal, was to fight and fight and fight until I was killed in battle.
Right. And that hasn't happened. So I guess I need to keep putting one foot in front of the other and perhaps look for that empty saddle
that empty saddle.
Something, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I think you've got the next bit, haven't you?
I do indeed. Gandalf and Pippin came to Merry's room, and there they found Aragorn standing by the bed. "Poor old Merry!" cried Pippin, and he ran to the bedside, for it seemed to him that his friend looked worse, and a grayness was in his face, as if a weight of years of sorrow lay on him. And suddenly a fear seized Pippin that Merry would die. "Do not be afraid," said Aragorn. "I came in time, and I have called him back. He is weary now and grieved, and he has taken a hurt like the Lady Éowyn, daring to smite that deadly thing. But these evils can be amended, so strong and gay a spirit is in him. His grief he will not forget, but it will not darken his heart. It will teach him wisdom." Then Aragorn laid his hand on Merry's head, and, passing his hand gently through the brown curls, he touched the eyelids and called him by name. And when the fragrance of athelas stole through the room like the scent of orchards and of heather in the sunshine full of bees, suddenly Merry awoke, and he said, "I am hungry. What is the time?" "Past supper time now," said Pippin, "though I dare say I could bring you something if they will let me." "They will indeed," said Gandalf, "and anything else that this rider of Rohan may desire, if it can be found in Minas Tirith, where his name is in honour." "Good," said Merry. "Then I would like supper first, and after that a pipe." At that his face clouded. "No, not a pipe. I don't think I'll smoke again." "Why not?" said Pippin. "Well," answered Merry slowly, "he is dead. It has brought it all back to me. He said he was sorry he had never had a chance of talking herblore with me. Almost the last thing he ever said. I shall never be able to smoke again without thinking of him. And that day, Pippin, when he rode up to Isengard and was so polite." "Smoke then, and think of him," said Aragorn. "For he was a gentle heart and a great king and kept his oaths, and he rose out of the shadows to a last fair morning. Though your service to him was brief, it should be a memory, glad and honorable, to the end of your days." And I'll stop there.
Okay, so, right, we know that Aragorn had left Éowyn's room earlier, so he's already by Merry's side when Gandalf and Pippin arrive.
Yeah, he's in a hurry. He's like, there's folks to heal around here, man. I got jobs to do.
I'm zipping around, and I'm laying hands on as many people as I can. That's a whole
Which
other
doesn't
conversation.
sound right, does it?
Just doesn't, does
No,
it?
there's an edge to that I don't need to hear.
So Pippin's really concerned for his friend because he actually looks worse than when he saw him earlier, and I think he looked bad enough then.
Yeah, he did, absolutely.
Right. His face, I mean, this is very un-Merry-like, un-Hobbit-like. His face is grey with years of sorrow.
And I wonder if that's actually maybe the first time Pippin is really worried about Merry dying. I mean, he's worried about Merry. He misses Merry. We see a lot of that. But I think this might be the first time that there's this very real sense in his mind that Merry could die.
Right. And I wonder if that's because Pippin has actually experienced death up close and personally recently.
Just very recently indeed. He was up there
very
when
recently.
Denethor tried to kill Faramir and took his own life. Yeah.
Right. When Denethor turns into a crispy critter, it's a little bit difficult for Pippin in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm putting that in a rather humorous fashion.
Well, we sort of kind of have to in some ways. I think we tried to do that a little bit when we went through that chapter. It's one of those ones where you either, I mean, it was like when Sean and I did Turin all the way back in season 1. You have to make the jokes because if you don't, it's too dark.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So having witnessed deep fried Denethor, I think that Pippin has actually, again, come face to face with the concept of death. So now that kind of carefree, light-hearted hobbit is overlaid with wisdom gained through experience.
Yeah.
And this leads him, I think, to his greater concern about Merry, which is that, he could actually lose him.
And he's seen also how close a call it was with Faramir and Éowyn, and he knows that as powerful as Aragorn is, it might still not happen. But Aragorn, as before, has already done the hard work, right? He's called Merry back. He's done that first step where he's gone in and he's called. So we haven't been witness to that. But that step, as important as the athelas has been in each of these cases, seems to be far more important here for all three of them in terms of what actually saves them. Yeah.
Right. The athelas is kind of the marzipan on the cake, if you like. Mm-hmm. But Aragorn is the cake.
Yeah.
And that's all many different kinds of wrong with
I
that
was
statement. But
say,
you get what I mean, right? Aragorn is the cake.
Cake laying on hands, and is this PPP After Dark now?
Not really, but we'll save that for later.
All
okay,
right,
so
enough.
Anyway, Aragorn being cake, athelas being marzipan. The important bit is Aragorn and what he's actually able to do. And the athelas enhances. We were talking about this last week, weren't we? Where he's channeling his power through the athelas. Athelas without Aragorn is a sweet-smelling herb.
You're not going to let that die, are you?
That is effective, but with Aragorn, it's actually much more powerful.
Absolutely.
Because he's channeling his power that he does have through the athelas.
Correct.
So it's much more important, the fact that he's able to call these people back. And then we get the athelas, and that is what kind of brushes the last of the black breath away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now Merry's just tired. He's sad. He's been hurt like Éowyn was because he attached the Witch King.
Right.
These things, these evils, as Aragorn calls them, they can be healed.
Correct.
And in part because Merry has a carefree strength about him, right?
I love that. He even says, look, he's not going to forget the sorrow, but it will be for the good. It's going to help him learn how to be more wise. And I love that because I can't help but think of Nienna. And
oh, yes.
Her role in all of this, way back behind the scenes here. And because, again, the connection with Gandalf as well, with Nienna. So sorrow and wisdom are intertwined. And Aragorn's making that point here that it's really, really hard. And I think you and I have both been around in life long enough to agree that it is very hard to be wise without experiencing sorrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And sure, it can destroy you. It can devastate you. But if you can get through it, it gives you a wisdom that you can't have without it. And I think that's what we see with Merry here.
Because it is a life experience that everyone is going to experience sorrow at some point.
Of course. Yeah.
The life experience teaches you something about the world. It teaches you something about yourself. And that is the gaining of wisdom. And these are not difficulties that Merry has really had to encounter in his life before now.
True. A very simple life, really.
Exactly.
Right up until getting kidnapped by the Uruk-hai, really. Yeah.
Right up to that moment, yes. That was a little hitch in his step. But apart from that.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you called it on Nienna there, because wisdom tempered with pity and mercy, that is the greatest of all wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
it is.
Gandalf's wisdom.
Yes, it really is, because it's that empathetic wisdom. It's not knowledge that can be, dished out and feel cold and impersonal. It's an empathetic wisdom that knows and understands. Yeah.
Right. And so here Aragorn does exactly what he's done before.
Yeah.
A hand on the head of the suffering person, calling them by name. And then we get a third individual response to the athelas fragrance. And this time it's orchards and heather in the sun and bees.
This is so hobbity. I love this. So we're going to do a quick sidebar on these three different, maybe four different if you count Yora's response to athelas. So let's recap. With Faramir, first we read, straightway a living freshness filled the room as if the air itself awoke and tingled, sparkling with joy, followed by the fragrance that came to each was like a memory of dewy mornings of unshadowed sun in some land of which the fair world in spring is but itself a fleeting memory.
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it, to read these different descriptions, and you can actually pinpoint what Tolkien is pointing to with all of these. So, and we are not going to discount Yoreth's experience at all, of course. She is reminded of the roses of Imloth Melui when she was a lass. And then with Éowyn, we get As the sweet influence of the herb stole about the chamber, it seemed to those who stood by that a keen wind blew through the window, and it bore no scent, but was an air wholly fresh and clean and young, as if it had not before been breathed by any living thing, and came new made from snowy mountains high beneath a dome of stars, or from shores of silver far away washed by seas of foam.
By the way, I'm still blown away by that passage. Isn't that one of the most evocative, rich description passages, and
Tolkien
in a book
was
that's filled with them.
Master of this sort of thing,
and the alliteration even in there, not before been breathed by any living thing. It's just so much of it, and it's just so rich. But Mary's is simpler, and again, that fits, right? Sort of very hobbity, but we'll get to the fitting nature of each of these. Mary's was just the scent of orchards and of heather in the sunshine full of bees, and it frankly feels like each one's really connected to who they are, huh?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. So, I mean, back to Faramir's, that's clearly a call back to the old days.
Yeah.
Spring is itself but a fleeting memory in some other land, a place or time that doesn't exist anymore except in memory. And given the way Faramir views history, this really fits him, right? He's almost like a direct connection to Numenor of old.
He is old school. Yeah, you're absolutely.
Exactly.
He's a throwback. Yeah.
Yeah.
He really is. And I mean, I think we read that part about, in him, the blood of Westernesse runs nearly true,
Yes.
And I think combine that with his love of the things that Gandalf has taught him, right? I mean, because Denethor, the blood of Westernesse also runs nearly true. But I think that's the distinction, is that Faramir did learn from Gandalf, and Denethor just found Gandalf, to be a usurper, as we read in, I think in Unfinished Tales, or maybe the appendices. But
yes.
Yeah.
Denethor chose poorly.
Yes, he did. Great Indiana Jones reference.
Thank you very much.
Éowyn's, like we said earlier, seems like this direct intervention by Manwë and Varda. I mean, they saw what she did. They saw the defeat of the Witch King. They may have intervened in the process of her healing. But I want to talk about how this relates to her. And to me, this whole idea of not being before breathed and new made, all of these phrases make me think of it's like a reset button, a second chance without those restrictions or cage bars from before. There's no worm tongue, no king to have to watch over. There's this freedom to begin again with a clean slate. There's a purity here that's refreshing as well. I have to admit, hers is a little harder to decipher, but it seems very connected to, like you said, the fact that she's a traumatized woman, and this is a reset.
Right. It's almost like this, possibly a breeze sent by Manwë, if you like, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
It's cleansing her. It's ridding her as much as
that.
possible of the shadow that lies on her.
Yeah.
I love that idea of it being a reset button. It's not as simple as that, is it?
No,
it can't
I mean,
be.
sadly, nothing can be, right?
But this is a chance for her to reclaim a life over which she can have some control.
Yeah.
And this is always my point about Éowyn, is that her trauma lies in her lack of control. She's had no control over what she can do, where she can be, how she can act.
Yeah.
All those things have been taken away from her.
Yeah.
Up until the moment where she chose to embrace the Dernhelm side of her character. And I will argue greatly that Dernhelm is not a disguise. Dernhelm is actually a part of Éowyn that she chooses to embrace, so that will enable her to do what she wants to do, which is to ride to the Pelennor fields, because she wants to take control of her life.
That fits. I mean, remember when Mary realizes it's her, he says it was Éowyn. And it was
Dernhelm also. Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point.
That is a telling line.
And I've argued that before, and I'll, if I give a paper at Oxenmoot, that's actually what my paper is actually very much on.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah.
But I think that here what's happening is, by breathing this fresh, new, almost unbreathed by anybody else air through blowing away as much as possible of that shadow, it's actually clearing her as much as possible of these darknesses within her, so that she will eventually be in a position where she can choose for herself what happens next.
Yeah.
And when you get to the chapter, The Steward and the King, that's exactly what happens. And I'm not going to preempt all that, but it is a moment where she takes control. She makes a choice. She is able to make a decision right then of what her life is going to be. And that's what's been missing from her life before.
Yeah.
So this is like breathing through, getting rid of all of that shadow and putting her in a position where she can grow towards that moment of taking control again.
Definitely. What about Mary's?
Well,
Nowhere near as deep.
Mary's is just totally Hobbit-like, right?
Yeah.
It's focused on the outdoors. I mean, it just shouts Shire to me. It's specifically attained outdoors, right?
Yes, that's a very good point.
Okay, so this makes me think of, quote, a well-ordered and well-farmed countryside was their favorite haunt from the prologue.
Yeah.
This isn't forest and unexplored wilderness.
No.
It's home for Merry.
Yeah.
This, of course, is what's so important to Merry. It's home and breathing home through the room for him. That's got to be a real rooting for him back in the real world and out of the shadow world where these people seem to kind of drop into when they've been affected by the Black Breath. Just to add to that, it also makes me think of the Entwives because they particularly liked orchards. Yeah. So, of course, they were also about...
Very orderly,
in some ways, ordering and taming and making the natural world work for them.
Yeah, that was actually one of the big sources of conflict with the Ents themselves. You're right.
Right.
So what does this sort of individualized response mean? Why isn't it a uniform response? Why doesn't athelas smell the same to everybody? The fact that their responses are not all the same tells us something in and of itself. What?
Tells us, I think, that everybody needs to find their own way and that everyone is going to respond to things differently. I mean, thinking of the Black Breath in terms of a sort of a depressive state, if you like, in which a shadow has fallen upon you. Everybody who has experienced that will experience it in a different way. They're going to behave in a different way to other people. They're going to act in a different way to other people. We're not all the same.
No.
In the way in which we respond to difficulties. Right? I'm going to point you to On Fairy Stories, of course. Specifically.
That's exactly where I was thinking. Yep.
Right. So you go on. You talk about recovery, escape, and consolation.
Well, no, I mean, if you've got it, I want to make sure you jump in on this. But my first thought was recovery.
Right.
We're talking about a healing context here. And yeah, I think there's some consolation involved. I don't think there's really any escape necessarily unless we're talking about escape from darkness. But I think we're talking about recovery. We're talking about seeing the world the way it is and not the way we've become accustomed to seeing it and regaining that fresh view. I think for Éowyn's in particular, that's the strongest. And I think that's where we see maybe a greater need for her to see the world, not so much as it is, because it has been as it has been for her. I mean, it's not like she could have, changed her mindset and it would have been different. She was stuck, but now things are different. Now she has a chance to recover a new life, to recover a different, set of experiences. And I think it's the same for all of them. They're recovering physically and as well as kind of spiritually, emotionally from the Black Breath, but they're also recovering that perspective. And I think that's, to me, there's an On Fairy Stories feel to this, just the fact that everybody has it different. But I like what you've said that, this is, we all handle these things differently. So of course the way we recover is going to be different. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Merry, to regain the world, which is of course what Tolkien is looking to when he talks about recovery.
Right.
To see the world as it is, but to see it fresh. It's reminding him of home that is important here. It's a different need to Éowyn's need.
Yeah,
she needs something that is not the same as what Merry needs in this moment.
And even Faramir's need, right? Faramir's need is for that, we talked about how it's sort of a throwback and it's a classic, he's remembering greater days. Well, what is that but the return of the king? I mean, we've got the first king in over 1,000 years. This is a return to the old days. In this case, the good old days that Faramir is thinking of historically. Yeah.
Right. There's nothing that's going to bring Faramir greater joy in this moment.
Than serving the king. Absolutely.
Exactly. That's the purpose his life has been waiting for.
Yeah.
Really?
In theory, it's also the purpose of Denethor's life, but he said
much.
No to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to the text.
Yeah.
Because, Hobbit-like,
Oh,
Mary
yes.
suddenly wakes up and says he's hungry. What time is it?
Sounds like my son. It's like 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing out of bed? I'm hungry. Go back
Starving.
to sleep, man. You're not allowed to eat until 8 a.m. It's just not on a weekend. Forget it. No. Yeah. Of course
The what time is it does remind me of Frodo
Yes.
in Imladris.
It is 10 o'clock in the morning on October the 24th, if you have to know. Yeah. I do like that. It's very hobbity. Look, there's less to compare here, but Faramir's response to being woken up was to recognize the king and agree to follow him. Éowyn's was a number of things, a little more complicated. You got the joy to see Éomer, obviously the sorrow about Theoden, but a desire to go back into battle. Mary's is this simple, when can I eat?
Yeah. When's breakfast? I'm
When's
starving.
food? I love it. Yeah.
Pippin tells him it's late, it's past dinner.
Of course.
But if they'll let him go, he's sure he can bring him some food. And
Well, yeah,
of
he's not
course,
going to get DoorDash to come to the Houses of Healing at this point. They've all
not
left.
really,
Yeah.
no. And of course, Gandalf says, hey, anything for the guy who helped kill the Witch King. You're kind of famous, Mary.
Mary's going to take him up on that offer. Well, then, if it's anything, I'll take a pipe to smoke along with my dinner. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know that I ever want to smoke again because Theoden's dead.
Right. And that's the source of his sadness there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to kind of shake that off as well. And it's, I think it's interesting that actually it's Aragorn that kind of pulls him out of that. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
He recalls some of Theoden's last words, that he regretted never getting to talk herb lore with him in Meduseld.
Indeed.
And so smoking is now always going to make Merry think of Theoden and that time that he met him in Isengard when he was so polite.
I love that. Yeah. That calls
so
back a very
sad.
specific moment, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
going back to the road to Isengard, Theoden meets them, has a little chat, and then he says, farewell, my hobbits, may we meet again in my house. There you shall sit beside me and tell me all that your hearts desire, the deeds of your grandsires as far as you can reckon them. And we will speak also of Tobald the Old and his herb lore, just out of honor and respect for Sara here. I'll use the H. Farewell, he says. The hobbits bowed low. So that is the King of Rohan, said Pippin in an undertone. A fine old fellow. Very polite.
Yeah.
I love that.
So Merry's recalling that meeting, but he's also remembering Pippin's words about that meeting.
Yeah, because he's not the one who said that. Pippin did. But he remembers it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as I was mentioning there, it's Aragorn that has the right solution to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's, don't give up smoking. Smoke and think of him. If the problem is that smoking is going to make you think of him, well, that's actually not a problem at all. These are good memories. So smoke and think of him and all the good times, right?
Yeah. And his words about Theoden, I think, reveal so much about what Aragorn respects in somebody else, especially another king. A gentle heart and a great king, and kept his oaths.
Right. So important.
That's all you need. I mean, in Aragorn's book, those are what make you, a good king. He points out that even though Merry only served him for a little while, and by the way, it is a very little while, right? The day that Merry swore his service to Theoden was just March 10th. It was 5 days ago. He's not even worked for him for a week. But those 5 days should be a happy and honorable memory for the rest of his life.
That really kind of compares to the short time that Pippin was in service to Denethor, right?
To Denethor, who didn't even bother to remember his name.
Right.
You brought this halfling here to be a spy. You mean I'm right here? My name is Pippin. I've been working for you for a few days. You'd think you'd know that by now. Seriously. That guy.
Seriously, indeed.
That guy. Well, you've got the next reading. This is just such... I had to break down into some smaller readings because there's so many little things to unpack and because every one of these sections has little different pieces of flavor. So fire away.
Okie dokie. So again, picking up.
Pippin up.
Picking up straight after what you were reading there. Merry smiled. Well then, he said, if Strider will provide what is needed, I will smoke and think. I had some of Saruman's best in my pack, but what became of it in the battle I'm sure I don't know. Master Meriadoc, said Aragorn, if you think that I have passed through the mountains and the realm of Gondor with fire and sword to bring herbs to a careless soldier who throws away his gear, you are mistaken. If your pack has not been found, then you must send for the herb master of this house. And he will tell you that he did not know that the herb you desire had any virtues, but that it is called Westman's weed by the vulgar, and galenas by the noble, and other names in other tongues more learned, and after adding a few half-forgotten rhymes that he does not understand, he will regretfully inform you that there is none in the house, and he will leave you to reflect on the history of tongues. And so now must I. For I have not slept in such a bed as this since I rode from Dunharrow, nor eaten since the dark before dawn. Merry seized his hand and kissed it. I'm frightfully sorry, he said. Go at once. Ever since that night at Bree, we've been a nuisance to you. But it is the way of my people to use light words at such times and say less than they mean. We fear to say too much. It robs us of the right words when a jest is out of place. I know that well, or I would not deal with you in the same way, said Aragorn. May the Shire live for ever unwithered. And kissing Merry, he went out, and Gandalf went with him.
I love this moment for Aragorn and Merry. First of all, Aragorn's wit, but we'll get to that.
Can I just say thanks for giving me the world's longest sentence to read?
That is true. That is a very long sentence. Absolutely. Oh, man. I'm looking at it now.
Thanks,
wow.
John Ronald.
Yeah, that's as long as some of the ones in the Silmarillion. Yeah.
Right.
Well done,
yes.
by the way. So Merry concedes, right? Very well. If Strider can give me a pipe and some pipeweed, I'll smoke and I will think of Theoden. Absolutely.
Right. So he remembers that he had some of the spoils of Saruman, but he's got no idea what's happened to his pack since the battle, for pretty good reason,
well, yeah,
I think.
He's got a little bit going on, right? And like I said, Aragorn's wit here is fantastic. This dry sense of humor that I absolutely adore. This satirical spin on the herb master. Plus, I think a little bit of a satirical take on Gandalf at the start.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's very much a little ding there. And Gandalf standing right there, he catches it. But yeah, he tells him, look, I didn't fight my way here to bring pipeweed to Merry. That is not my job. I got other things to do.
So he says, you'll have to call for the herb master who will tell you more than you want to know, but less than you need to know. And they pick on Yorith.
They do.
What the heck?
They do. I know. It's so sad that they do, but yeah, I understand. Oh, it is hilarious, though, this whole section. This little tongue-in-cheek comedy routine. In there, we actually learn something useful. We learn about Westman's weed, which, according to nomenclature, is a common speech rendering of herb of the men of the West, whereas galenas is simply Sindarin for pipeweed.
And what is the herb of you as man of the West?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't smoke any herbs or herbs for that matter. Does herb mind being smoked? I do very much. People named Herb should not be smoked. This is why herb is with an H and herbs are not. But
yeah, you made that argument last week. I'm still not having it.
No, all right, fine. I still
anyway.
save a syllable on aluminum, by the way, and I'm just going to.
That's only because Americans can't spell.
Well, that's fair. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. No, I don't know. Probably the herb that I use the most would be rosemary. I use that in a lot of foods.
That's nice.
Yeah,
for remembrance.
Yeah, it's a nice little fragrance. But all right, moving on.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was Gardener's question time. We're moving on. So then he gets a little bit more serious, unlike us. He's exhausted. He says, I haven't slept in a proper bed since Dunharrow. I haven't eaten since it was before dark yesterday. So about 24 hours. So he's tired and he's more hungry than your average hobbit.
I'd be really hangry. I would not be clever enough to come up with this sort of dry humor after 24 hours of not eating. But
oh, no. I would be defenestrating people rather than saying, let's have a little joke.
Defenestrating. I love it. Merry feels terrible here, right? He's like, I'm so sorry, Aragorn, and not just for this moment, right? But for being a nuisance in general. It's about time you figured that out, Merry. But in doing so, he gives us some really, really great insight into hobbits, doesn't he?
Right. There's this lovely phrase. He says, we use light words at such times and say less than we mean. Partly because they're afraid of saying too much, because doing that robs us of the right words when being funny about stuff is inappropriate.
When is that? I don't know about that. When is funny stuff inappropriate. I don't know.
No idea.
Seriously. So their default is to jest. That's the whole point about hobbits. That is their default status. Aragorn's like, of course I know that. I've been guarding you hobbits all your lives. I know all about you people. So of course he knows that that's who they are, and he wouldn't play around with them if it weren't the case. So you don't see him taking this sort of tack with Galadriel Celeborn in Lothlorien, right?
Right,
he should.
Exactly.
That would be hilarious if he did. But,
But what's interesting is that what Merry is describing here is very British humour.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Mocking our way through adversity. And goodness knows, since about 2016, we've had plenty of adversity to mock, but
Fair,
we do.
Fair.
Yeah, that is what we do when things are bad. Not so much laugh about it, but take the mickey out of it.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the only way to be. So that's why sarcasm is one of the British tools in the box, if you like.
It's one of the things I admire most about British culture, actually, is that embrace of sarcasm and that sort of, underlying level of snarkiness that kind of sits just below the surface of nearly everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the few things we do well, I think.
One of the few things that's fair. All right. Well, because you don't pronounce herbs correctly, but that's all right. I'll let that go because I know I'm going to get emails like crazy over these 3 weeks, by the way. So.
Right. So I'm going to start calling them Hobbits just for that.
Now you sound like you're from a different part of England. Call them Hobbits.
What's Hobbits, precious?
But yeah, I've always had a soft spot for the Hobbits' way of dealing with things. This phrase that Mary uses here really speaks to my heart because it's very much kind of the tone of the Prancing Pony podcast, really. I mean, it's that our default is to poke fun at. Yeah, we take things seriously. We stop and we talk through themes and important things. But our default is to make fun of it and to laugh and to just, find the humor. And that's the darker it is, the more we try to find that. And I get that from what Mary's saying is we use light words, robbing us of the right words when a jest is out of place. It is a challenge sometimes. Yeah. No doubt.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So this is followed by this blessing for the Shire. A previous draft had him adding a bit to it. For this, maybe more than all else, I hope and labour.
Ooh.
So Aragorn's really quite focused on the safety of somewhere like the Shire.
Yeah.
And then he kisses Merry and he leaves with Gandalf. And has anyone seen Imrahil? Imrahil.
Hello,
he's
Prince.
Gone. Yeah. He's gone.
And the artist formerly known as Prince shows up. You called? He starts singing, Purple Rain or little Red Corvette or something. All right.
Okay. I think you're up next, Alan.
I think so. I'll try not to use so many light words at such times. Pippin remained behind. Was there ever anyone like him? He said. Except Gandalf, of course. I think they must be related. My dear ass, your pack is lying by your bed, and you had it on your back when I met you. He saw it all the time, of course. And anyway, I have some stuff of my own. Come on now. Longbottom leaf it is. Fill up while I run and see about some food. And then let's be easy for a bit. Dear me, we tooks and brandybucks, we can't live long on the heights. No, said Merry, I can't. Not yet, at any rate. But at least, Pippin, we can now see them and honour them. It is best to love first what you are fitted to love, I suppose. You must start somewhere and have some roots, and the soil of the Shire is deep. Still, there are things deeper and higher, and not a gaffer could tend his garden in what he calls peace but for them, whether he knows about them or not. I'm glad that I know about them, a little. But I don't know why I'm talking like this. Where is that leaf? And get my pipe out of my pack if it isn't broken.
Wow.
I know. I just, love this.
Goodness me.
Oh.
Anyway, let's go back to the beginning of that. It's only a little chunk out of the text, but there's so much packed into it, right?
Yeah.
So, for the first time since Pippin rode off with Gandalf after his little whoopsie with the Palantir, Merry and Pippin are by themselves and reunited.
And it feels so good.
Look how I feed you the lines.
I know. Just a little softball right over the plate. Yeah. Now, of course, that's only been 10 days, but they have been through a lot in those 10 days, haven't they?
Absolutely. And Pippin expresses his thoughts about Aragorn, that he's a true one of a kind, except maybe he's a bit like Gandalf.
One of a kind, but maybe one of two. Right, yeah.
Right, yes. He's unique, except for not being unique.
He's unique in his lack of uniqueness.
Right.
There you go.
That is unique, right?
That is.
And then he mocks Merry for falling for Aragorn's bit about his pack.
It's right there, you idiot. He saw it. You were wearing it when I found you. I love that. My dear ass. Such a line. And then, of course, look, I have my own leaf, too. I mean, fill up while I get some food, and then we'll just chill, right? We'll be easy. I love that. We're going to sit around and be hobbits for a little while and stop worrying about all these things. And that sort of segues into his next line, which I want to talk about a little bit. We tooks and brandybucks, we can't live long on the heights.
Oh, wow. So we get light words from Pippin to start off with, and then this little chunk of wisdom.
Yeah. It's the exact opposite of what we're going to get next with Merry, where it's all heavy stuff, and then at the end, like, wait, what am I saying? Let's smoke.
Right. So what do you think Pippin means by we can't live long on the heights?
These big moments, these world-changing moments of the return of the king, or the slaying of the Witch King, or even the death of Theoden, and these kinds of crucial historical things that are going to be written down. That's not for hobbits. That's not for us. Certainly not for us, Tooks and Brandybucks. I mean, maybe those Baggins, but not Tooks and Brandybucks. We are made for less important things. We are made for having food and smoking pipeweed and sitting around and talking. That is our role in this world.
Or at least their happy space.
Yes.
That's their happy place, isn't it?
I mean, it turns out they're very actually quite good at living on the heights for a little while.
They can do it, but it might not be their first choice of thing to do.
It's not their happy place, like you said. Yeah.
And they're always happy to go back to the quiet life.
Yeah. In fact, it's the quiet life that would give them, as we see with Frodo, for example, it's the Shire that gives him the courage he needs to go on the quest and to do the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Merry agrees with this, but he does see an advantage to having been on the heights, as Pippin puts it.
Yeah.
Because he says we can see those heights and honor them better now.
I love that. And honor them better now. We can appreciate them better now. Now that we've been here and done this, we can have more understanding and appreciation of what Aragorn's done, of what Gandalf has done. And he gets really beautifully philosophical here, and it's worth talking about because I really want to understand what he means when he says, love first what you are fitted to love.
I think that goes back to we hobbits are comfy down here. And we were made to love the Shire. We were made to love that simple life.
Yeah.
This is who we are. It doesn't mean we can't step outside of it and do things, but what we're fitted to love is
our nature,
this.
Right? Fitted to love, because that very much calls to mind, the nature of a people. That makes me think in turn of like the letters that Tolkien's written about the elves and how their nature is to be, immortal, and that their problem came with trying to preserve time the way it was. Right? They fought against their nature. And that was men's problem too, was fighting against their nature as mortals. That when you love first what you are meant to love, what you are fitted to love, it means not to fight against your nature, not to fight against your design. Right.
Yeah. And the elves, of course, are far more up on the heights than hobbits usually are.
Quite true.
Yeah.
Quite
but
true.
As Merry then says, you have to start somewhere and have roots. I love the fact there's a lot of metaphor of growth and solidity and gardening and all that sort of thing in what Merry has to say. So you need a support structure, a place to call home, maybe. And the Shire has deep soil.
Ooh.
Now, what do you think Tolkien's saying here?
The Shire has deep soil. You got to have roots. Okay.
Well, what this reminds me of is Bilbo's rhyme about deep roots.
Yeah. The one about Aragorn, deep roots not reached by the frost.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all of these kind of growing metaphors, isn't it?
It is.
That the Shire has deep soil, which means you can put down the biggest, longest, most solid roots. And a plant that does that can actually fulfill what it needs to be. And what it needs to be is the best possible plant, if you like.
Yeah.
That gives the best fruit or
whatever
the best
you
flowers.
are, be the best at that. Right.
Exactly. So for that to happen, you need deep soil that will enable you to grow those roots, and you can be rooted in that. And that is your comfort zone. That is where you are happiest. But those who have deep roots, who know who they are and where they belong and what their life is kind of supposed to be, unlike Éowyn, it doesn't cage them.
No.
It just gives them the sort of strength and the build of their life, if you like, that enables them to step up and do other things, but then return to where their roots are. When you've got stability, that's the word I'm searching for.
There it is.
Yeah.
They're able to do that precisely because they have that stability, that they've planted themselves there in the deep soil of the Shire.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love this because we've gone from the heights to deep soil. Right. We've done this range, and Mary says that there are heights even higher than these and depths even deeper than the Shire's soil. Yeah.
Right. So the heights are greater deeds, perhaps, or people that are well above even what they have experienced, and depths even deeper than the Shire's soil could possibly be not just like a literal rootedness, but being almost a part of the earth itself.
Okay.
That, your whole sense of being, your history, your culture and everything is rooted,
fully grounded
in everything that Middle Earth is. So I don't know. That's kind of what I thought Tolkien might be referring to there.
This is really a fascinating passage, I have to admit. I mean, because it's not very often that hobbits get philosophical. So
it's not. But I'll also tell you what else I think is unusual is that in this passage, Tolkien suddenly goes really metaphorical.
Yeah, he does.
And that's quite unusual for him, actually. He tends to go more for simile-based image. And there's a distancing about simile.
Yes.
It's like this. It's a something as that, right? But with metaphor, it's a direct comparison.
It is this. Yeah.
Exactly. And you've really got to read into that and see, okay, well, what do you mean here? What is the picture you are painting for us? And he doesn't often get as lyrically metaphorical as this.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Similes are very, very common throughout. We see a lot of those. I'm thinking even of the Balrog wings are very much a simile,
Balrogs
not
do
a
not
metaphor.
Have wings. I will die on that hill.
Welcome. Yeah, it's very, very metaphorical here, very philosophical. And it feels just a little bit different than the typical Hobbit conversation, doesn't it?
Oh, very much so. And Merry continues with these metaphors.
Yeah.
When he says, not a gaffer could tend his garden in peace but for them. So he's talking about, well, who's them, for example? Is he speaking specifically of the Rangers, or is there something deeper and higher that he's talking about? So you could, on one level, say he's referring to the Rangers, who they didn't know about, but now they know about.
Right.
But also, there are greater powers in this world than the Rangers.
Yeah. You can go all the way up to the Valar in this case.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So he does have a short endurance, shall we say, for being philosophical. He spent less time talking about it than we spent talking about it. And he wonders why he's talking like this. So he says to Pippin, go ahead and get me that leaf and my pipe. It is time to smoke. For us, it is not time to smoke, but it is time to read the next passage. Sarah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm picking up straight away from that last bit. Aragorn and Gandalf went now to the warden of the Houses of Healing, and they counselled him that Faramir and Éowyn should remain there and still be tended with care for many days. The Lady Éowyn, said Aragorn, will wish soon to rise and depart, but she should not be permitted to do so if you can in any way restrain her, until at least 10 days be past. As for Faramir, said Gandalf, he must soon learn that his father is dead. But the full tale of the madness of Denethor should not be told to him until he is quite healed and has duties to do. See that Beregond and the Perian, who were present, do not speak to him of these things yet. And the other Perian, Meriadoc, who is under my care, what of him? Said the warden. It is likely that he will be fit to arise tomorrow for a short while, said Aragorn. Let him do so if he wishes. He may walk a little in the care of his friends. They are a remarkable race, said the warden, nodding his head. Very tough in the fibre, I deem.
Very, indeed. A very short section here, too, by the way, but I wanted to pay special attention to the continued recovery of these three, but especially to Merry's resilience. Aragorn and Gandalf go to the hospital administrator, for lack of a better phrase, the warden of the House of Healing. They give him their advice, right? Both Faramir and Éowyn need to stay there and be cared for over the next several days. They are not ready to go.
Although Aragorn recognizes, because he seems to kind of understand Éowyn, that she's going to want to get up and go.
Yeah.
And she's already talked about finding
She's already said, I want a
saddle.
saddle, right? I want to keep fighting.
Exactly. But she should not for at least 10 days. That's an
a
interesting
long time, yeah.
Yeah, but it's an interesting arbitrary number of days to pick out and say, okay, 10 days. Why 10 days? Why not 7? Why must it be 10? Why not 14?
It is kind of an arbitrary number, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's trying to give her time to not just recover, because she can't be leaping out of bed and straight into a saddle.
No.
But maybe give time for her to reconsider what's happening in her life, and perhaps not just recover physically, but recover emotionally and spiritually from everything that's happened to her.
Yeah. Because like you said, she's been traumatized. She needs this time to heal, and not just physically. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Gandalf points out that Faramir does need to know that his father has died, but he does not need to know the full story of Denethor's despair and the influence of Sauron through the Palantir until after he's healed and he's gotten back to work.
Right. Let him have a job to do first before you lay this on him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the warden's got to make sure that Beregond and Pippin don't tell Faramir about that.
Yeah, for good reason. That would be devastating, I think, to Faramir right now, especially given
definitely.
One of the reasons that he was struggling and affected so much by the Black Shadow was the relationship with his father and the challenges that he faced there. But
right. I mean, the whole story of what happened with Denethor is a bit of a tough one, isn't it?
It's a really tough one. I mean, it's and for his son to have to hear this is going to be hard. But the warden also wants to know about Merry. So what about Merry?
Well, Aragorn thinks he's going to be ready to get up tomorrow for a bit and can take a walk with his friends because he's super resilient.
He really, really is. It's absolutely right. I mean, the warden says they are a remarkable people. He describes them as tough in the fiber, which is quite true. But in a draft, Gandalf actually replies to him, it goes deeper than the fiber.
It really does, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And this goes back to what we read about hobbits in the prologue, including the line about them being doughty at bay. Nonetheless, ease and peace had left this people still curiously tough. They were, if it came to it, difficult to daunt or to kill, and they were perhaps so unwearyingly fond of good things, not least because they could, when put to it, do without them, and could survive rough handling by grief, foe, or weather in a way that astonished those who did not know them well, and looked no further than their bellies and their well-fed faces.
I love that. I absolutely adore that paragraph in the prologue. I mean, doughty at bay is huge, but that whole bit about being difficult to daunt or kill and unwearyingly fond of good things because they could handle all these other things. I love that. So cool.
Yeah. And it just underpins what we've learned about hobbits, that they're not soft.
No.
They're actually
you're
quite
making
capable.
a mistake if you treat them that way, if you think that. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, I think you've got the next section.
I do, and it's actually the rest of the chapter. All 2 paragraphs of it. Here we go. At the doors of the houses, many were already gathered to see Aragorn, and they followed after him. And when at last he had supped, men came and prayed that he would heal their kinsmen, or their friends whose lives were in peril through hurt or wound, or who lay under the Black Shadow. And Aragorn arose and went out, and he sent for the sons of Elrond, and together they labored far into the night. And word went through the city, the king is come again indeed. And they named him Elfstone, because of the green stone that he wore, and so the name which it was foretold at his birth that he should bear was chosen for him by his own people. And when he could labor no more, he cast his cloak about him, and slipped out of the city and went to his tent just ere dawn, and slept for a little. And in the morning, the banner of Dol Amroth, a white ship like a swan upon blue water, floated from the tower, and men looked up and wondered if the coming of the king had been but a dream.
Oh, wonderful. So that's a wonderful passage about Aragorn there.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
So it's another short section.
Yeah.
But it does feel important enough to read it separately.
Mm-hmm. And it's so unrelated to the Hobbit chat and to all of this
really
other stuff.
Is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think we're being given some really important information about Aragorn here.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already got a bit of a following, right? He's got his fan base already set up. Yeah, they're the Aragorn Massive. Likely thanks to the word spread by Yoreth.
Exactly.
Right? Because you tell Yoreth and you might as well put it on the BBC.
Absolutely. And even when he stops to eat, people are asking him to heal their loved ones. Heal my son, heal my husband, heal my father. People who are injured, or worse, of course, those suffering from the Black Shadow.
Which just goes to show how much faith they've got in him already.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's exhausted.
Mm.
I mean, he was exhausted when he went to the Houses of Healing to heal Merry and Éowyn and Faramir.
Right.
But now he's being asked to please come and heal all of these people.
All of us. Heal everybody. Yeah.
Right.
And all of these do seem to take something out of him. It's not just that, time is ticking and he's tired because it's several hours later. This is an investment for him, right? This takes energy. Yeah.
It does. I mean, remember what happened when he called Faramir back? Mm-hmm. When Aragorn lost color, he went pale.
Yeah. Yeah. He's having to step into that darkness that they're in order to bring them back. So of course,
maybe expending some of his own life energy to call these people back.
I think so.
So this is not a simple task he's been asked, but he's no longer alone now, right?
No, that's correct. He sends for Elladan and Elrohir, the sons of Elrond, who also, of course, as we've talked about before, have very powerful healing abilities like their father, because they too, much closer than Aragorn, are descendants of Luthien.
In fact, going back to our discussion of the eldest of our race from last week, meaning specifically those descended from Luthien, we've got a quote here from letter number 155 to Naomi Mitchison. In explaining the idea of magic in his world, Tolkien says that it is not to be come by lore or spells, but it is an inherent power not possessed or attainable by men as such. Aragorn's healing might be regarded as magical, but it is in theory reported by hobbits who have very little notions of philosophy and science, while Aragorn is not a pure man, but at long remove, one of the children of Luthien.
There we go. One of the children of Luthien. That's the race, when he talks about the eldest of our race. So, like we talked about, it is that status, a descendant of Luthien, that gives him these healing powers. In fact, I would argue that the hands of the king are the hands of a healer, not because they're kings, but because the kings are part of Luthien's line.
Oh,
if that makes sense. In other words, what if you had a king who wasn't of Luthien's line? He wouldn't have healing powers.
No.
It's not the status as the monarch that gives you the ability to heal. It is the fact that you are a descendant of Luthien that gives you the healing powers, and that therefore also entitles you to be king.
Ooh, that's an excellent point. So the three of them, Elladan, Elrohir, and Aragorn, they worked deep into the night, and as they did, word continued to spread that the king had returned.
Hey, did you hear the king's back?
Oh yeah, king's back. King's back. Did you know the king's back? Anyway, they gave him the name. I love this bit because Aragorn's many, many names. Prophecy. It really calls back to Turin and his many, many names, but in a far better way, right? Mm-hmm. They gave him the name Elfstone because of the stone that he wore, which had been given to him by Galadriel, and so prophecy was fulfilled. So Aragorn has got as many names as Turin.
Yeah.
But Turin, of course, he named himself all of these different names, one after the other, casting off the one before in an effort to run away from his fate.
And always trying to escape his doom as a result, right? I mean,
exactly. Whereas Aragorn collects names and he keeps them all.
And they're given to him. So many of these names are given to him by others. I mean, it's fantastic. It really is. That comparison between the two of them is really neat. Mm-hmm. So many names, but he does reach his limit, not of names, but of working hours. And he gets back to his tent really just before the sun comes up. I mean, he has been on a healing bender So when the dawn arrives, there is the banner of Imrahil, a white swan ship on blue water. Look out, Feanor, fluttering from the tower.
And it leads some to wonder if Aragorn's coming was nothing more than a dream.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're watching the 24-hour news channels that are showing the king walking around the city. They go out, there's no king there. There's no banner up showing that the king's in. What's going on, right?
And then, all these people are saying, oh, I saw the king. And others are going, you're on drugs again, aren't you, Bob?
What crazy herb are you smoking?
Lol.
Oh, wow. So he arose and went out, and he sent for Bob and Nob, and together they labored far into the night, and word went through the city, the mail is come again indeed. Sara, what does Barliman have in the bag for us tonight?
That is a great segue.
That was a fun one that time. Yeah, these have been challenging, I confess.
Okay, so Axel S. writes in, we know the blood of Númenor also runs through Imrahil. Remember him?
Mm-hmm. Who knows where he went, but yeah, he's been around.
Yeah. He was around, yeah. Legolas even notices his elven heritage. Okay, so Axel says, I worked out that he was 64 at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and that he died at the age of 100. Reasons unknown to me? Bonus question. I always envisioned him as a fairly young man. Not calling Alan old or 64 for that.
Wait, is that you or is that Axel? Right.
I think that's 64. Axel. It's definitely not me.
Wow,
yeah.
wow.
I've never called you 64. I don't think I've called you old, but I've never called you 64.
Brutal.
So my question is, this is Axel's question.
All right.
How do you envision the fair prince of Dol Amroth? Alan?
Well, I'm not sure that the not calling Alan old bit actually qualifies as a nice save, Axel, but I will at least recognize the attempt. I'm going to start with the bonus question first because this one's relatively easy. We have no information whatsoever as to how Imrahil died. But given that he passed away at the age of 100, I'm going to suspect old age rather than, I don't know, say skydiving accident. Indeed, we do know that Imrahil was born in 2955, the son of Adrahil II, who himself, by the way, lived to the ripe old age of 93. He was the youngest of three kids, but the only son, and thus was the heir of the house of Dol Amroth. So his older sister, Finduilas, she was the middle of the three children, was 5 years older than he was and was only 26 when she married Denethor, who at the time was 46. So as a 21-year-old, he had a 46-year-old brother-in-law who was not exactly the most charming fellow around. Now,
no.
I say all that to kind of give us a flavor for what he's experienced and how he's grown up. Obviously, he's been, in the upper echelons of Gondorian society his entire life, being a noble. As for how I imagined him, like physically, like what does he look like? I always thought of him as having sort of elven characteristics, right? Maybe tall, even for a Númenorian, maybe fair hair, maybe lighter skin than others. After all, when Legolas sees him in the next chapter, we read that he bowed low, for he saw that here indeed was one who had elven blood in his veins. He says, "Hail, Lord, it is long since the people of Nimrodel left the woodlands of Lorien, and yet still one may see that not all sailed from Amaroth's haven west over water." Now, he also called Imrahil a fair lord and a great captain of men. So he's won the admiration of Legolas. And I have to say, I don't think that a young-looking man would make that same impression. I think this whole idea of a great captain of men suggests experienced leadership.
Yeah, I
agree. I don't see somebody who looks particularly young. I imagine somebody who looks wise, distinguished, kind of unflappable, really. And he is very much that. So again, not young, sort of middle-aged. I mean, I think of him as very similar to both Aragorn and even Faramir to some extent, men in whom the blood of Westernesse runs true. The house of Dol Amroth, as we know, was kin to the lords of Andunier and Númenor, so more distantly kin, but still kin to people like Elendil and Isildur. As for age, 64 at the time of the Battle of the Pelennor. So, I mean, Aragorn was 88. Theoden was 71, and he's not even Númenorian. Faramir was the baby at only 36. So really that puts Imrahil at kind of a little bit more than halfway between Faramir and Aragorn, right? He's old enough to be Faramir's dad. He's 28 years older than Faramir, but he's 24 years younger than Aragorn. May I be so hale in years. That many years. Sarah, I'm sorry. I know what your name is. I can't believe I just called you Sarah. It's because I had to cough.
That's all right, Bob.
Sorry, your thoughts?
Okay, well, passing off your mumble years, as we will do.
As we will do.
We will do.
Yeah.
I think we got to remember that 64, when you think about it, if he dies at 100, 64 is only just over halfway through his life. So he's essentially middle-aged, right?
I'm glad to hear 64 is considered middle-aged.
Well, it is if you know you're going to die at 100, right?
Well, I'm just going to assume that then.
Okay, so assuming that you die when you're 100, Alan, 64, you'll still be relatively hale and hearty.
That's my hope.
And if there is elvish blood in him, then I think actually that's going to have an effect. I mean, he might not have huge amounts of elvish blood, but he's clearly got some. And that's going to keep you certainly acting younger than ordinary people at 64.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Aragorn is in his 80s at this point, but of course he's going to be a lot longer lived.
He's as Númenorian as you get in this day and age.
Exactly. But with Imrahil, then you've got elvish blood, which is going to at least give him a little bit longer lifespan than the average.
Yeah.
So I think that
years.
kind of answers that.
I agree.
Okay. Do we have time for one more, Alan?
Only after you do the Beatles song, When I'm 64.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Yay! Thank you, Sarah. I won't ask how many years from now that is because I am a gentleman and a scholar. Yes.
I don't sing for many people. That's because I really hate it when people throw things at me.
Well, what have you said to me off air that your singing voice is rather like a cat being scraped by a cheese grater?
An angry cat being scraped with a cheese grater.
I love it.
Yes.
That's okay. You fit right in with me and Sean on that regard. We do not have a podcast because we're singers. Let's put it that way. But yes, to answer your question, we have time for one more. Rosalind B says, well, we don't have time, but we're doing one more anyway. How's that?
We're doing one anyway. What the heck? Never mind the cost. Give the cat the canary.
Exactly. I recently finished reading Lord of the Rings for the first time, and I can't help but notice, we mentioned this actually, that everyone has about a dozen names each. Okay, sometimes just 2 or 3. Aragorn alone, Rosalind says, has at least 5 I can think of right now. I say that's amateurish attempts. Strider, Estelle, the Thorongil, Elessard, of course, Aragorn. Of course, we know he has a lot more than that. I think we counted 14 at the last time. If you count names like Elessar and Elfstone as 2 names, of course. Rosalind continues, though. Even Merry gets a brand new name lobbed at him by Éowyn and Éomer at the end of Return of the King. To clarify, folks, that would be Holdwina of the Shire, which means faithful friend. So Rosalind says her questions are, why does everyone have names to spare? Who has the most, do you think? And what prize do they win? Another name? How on earth do they sign their letters? All right, Sarah, have fun with this one.
Okay, so first of all, I'll agree. There's a number of characters that have more than one name. And I mentioned earlier Turin.
Turin's the king of those, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But he, of course, takes on a name. He sort of serially renames himself in an effort to outrun. A
serial renamer.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
In an effort to outrun the bad stuff that came along with the previous name.
Exactly.
But, he can't hide from being Turin, son of Hurin, however much he renames himself.
No.
Gandalf has a bunch of names. At one point, he actually talks about all his different names. But what I want to point out is that Gandalf has different names in different places.
Yes, 100%.
And what we have to recognize is that there are different cultures that are interacting here. These different cultures have their own languages.
Yep.
They have their own ways of naming. And, Merry gets called Holdwine by the Rohirrim, and it is bestowed on him as almost like an honorific.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
Because, yes, he is Meriadoc of the Shire, but he has gained a place amongst the Rohirrim, and so they give him a Rohirric name.
It means faithful friend. It's just... It would be if I named you faithful friend, because that's the language I use. They're just using their language, so it's Holdwina of the Mark. So it's not a name, it's a title, but it's a name.
Yeah, but it's a name and a title. It's an honorific and a name at the same time. Yeah. But I think it's got a lot to do with all the different cultures. If you look at Aragorn's many names.
Many names, yes.
I think we counted about 14, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
They come from all over the place. I mean, he has a birth name, but then other names are bestowed on him in different places, in different times, by different cultures.
Yeah.
And he accepts, unlike Turin, who runs from the last ones that he's given himself, Aragorn accepts all of them because he is going to be the king of all of them.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
so as far as he's concerned, he may have one name among the Hobbits and another name among the Rohirrim and another name among the Gondorians.
And Gandalf's the same way, right? I am this among, in this group of people or in this part of the world, and I'm this among this. Yeah, it's not.
Right. And there are other languages.
Yeah.
So I will be this in Westron and I will be this in Quenya. And, it's fine because he wants to actually have a place amongst all of them and be accepted and acceptable within all of those cultures.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my answer to that. But what do you think?
By the way, I like the point that we made earlier that Turin renames himself in an effort to try to avoid his fate. Aragorn is given names by others in accordance with his fate. It's a very different spin. I will say there is one name that I think Aragorn takes on himself, that he gives himself, and it's Thorongil, because he doesn't want to be known by his real name at that point because he's not ready to make that claim on the throne. But I love that because even then it's Eagle of the Star, and it calls back to the star, to Elessar, to all of these things. It is just, every one of his names is fantastic. But yeah, you're right. They're all linguistically different. They're all culturally different. They're all geographically different.
Yep.
Unlike Turin, who, just like you said, keeps renaming himself because he's trying to escape his fate. I mean, whether it's Nathan the Wronged or it's Gorthal the Dreadhelm, or it's, my personal favorite was Agarwayan, son of Umarth, Bloodstained, son of Ill-Fate. Can you pick a better name? Because, maybe you should just be happy.
Yes,
son of Cheerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you try? Maybe you should try. Have you considered
Yes, he could call himself Herb.
Oh, well played.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
I don't know who has the most. It's going to be either Turin or Aragorn or Gandalf. They're all very close to, like a dozen or so.
Right. Yeah. But Aragorn, when he takes on Thorongil, he's not hiding from being Aragorn.
No.
He's not trying to leave Aragorn behind, is he?
No.
So he is Aragorn, but he's added this name so that he can go amongst these people and do what he needs to do, but without revealing who he is yet.
It makes me think of Éowyn it was, and yet Durnhelm also. Because he is still Thorongil. He's still the same guy who comes down here and fights and puts his life on the line.
Yeah, Aragorn it was, and yet Thorongil
also. Wow. They don't win anything, by the way, Rosalind, if they have the most names. How on earth do they sign their letters? Well, we know actually how Aragorn signs his letters because there is a king's letter that we will eventually take a look at when we get to that in, I think, season 9, 2 more years from now.
Looking forward to that.
That'll be fun. Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please come back again next week when Sara and I welcome some of the Prancing Pony Podcast supporters to the Common Room for our 23rd quarterly Questions After Nightfall.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I am going to really miss going through this chapter with you.
This has been fun, hasn't it?
Oh, man, yes. I've been hooked on a healing.
Hooked on a healing. I love it. Brilliantly played.
Thank you.
How are we going to top that?
Taking a bow right here. Anyway, folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Ranells, Barliman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
Now, speaking of the website, please be sure to give us a visit there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, we've got Prancing Pony Ponderings, and of course our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch, including the all-new chapter art from Megan.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is first and foremost a podcast about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. The PPP gets a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do. And of course, we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, and Dylan in Australia.
There's also Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, June in Ireland, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Connor in North Carolina, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Roger in Michigan, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, and Maureen from Massachusetts. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed. Thank you very, very much.
Now make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony podcast. Subscribe now through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favourite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, the banner that you'd fly on top of the Citadel to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barleyman. Even though Barleyman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend amongst such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Howl var. Farewell, folks.